I was 26 at the time. I still remember the sound of the walls breathing with me. The silence was heavy, as if it knew what I was trying to hide. He always said he loved me, but his kind of love hurt in ways that words can't explain. Each "I love you" felt like another thread tightening around my throat. I thought it was care. I thought jealousy meant protection. I thought fear was a kind of love, but when I finally saw what it really was, it was already too late. I remember the night my nightmare began. I remember the cold sweat on my skin, how my body shook without control. My clothes stuck to me as if they wanted to hide what was happening. The hands I once loved, rough, warm, safe, became something I wanted far away from me. And the sounds? They still echo in my mind. Sounds that didn't belong in that room. That didn't belong between tears and silence. That night changed everything. The pain wasn't just physical. It crawled inside my soul and made a home there. I remember his scent that night, how it changed forever. It used to be a smell I loved, warm, woody, and clean. But after that night, it became something that made me sick, mixed with the sharpness of alcohol and the memory of what I never wanted to relive. His presence felt heavy, like the air thickened around him, and every time he got close, my whole body pulled back in silence. He said it was love, that it was his way of caring for me. He repeated that everything he did was because he loved me, and I wanted to believe him. He provided, he smiled in front of my family, he was polite, charming, the perfect man. He brought gifts, prayed with us, helped my parents. No one saw what happened once the doors were closed. My family adored him, and I thought the problem was me, that I didn't love him enough, that I wasn't grateful enough. All my life I'd been told that love meant sacrifice. So I confused sacrifice with survival, and one day I realized I wasn't in a relationship. I was trapped inside a cage that smelled like devotion, until one night. Everything broke. It was the worst of all the nights, the one that made me understand I'd never be the same again. My body just shut down. I couldn't get out of bed for 2 days. He took care of me, brought me water, whispered that he was sorry, that he loved me, that I was his everything. And I let him, frozen in disbelief, wondering if it was remorse or control. That was my breaking point. The moment I knew the kindness had become scarier than the rage. That afternoon, when he left for work, the house felt different. Quiet. Still. Holy somehow. I opened my Bible, searching for peace in the words that raised me. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. I read it again and again like it was a whisper from heaven. Then another verse found me. Love is patient and kind. It does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. 1 Corinthians 13:4-6. And then the one that changed everything. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. That was it. That was the moment I decided to choose myself. Maybe for the first time ever. I planned every step in silence, like a prayer, told no one, except a distant friend who always said I'd find my strength one day. I gathered the money I'd hidden for months, folded between books and under floorboards, bought the ticket, and for the first time in years, hope tasted real. I vanished from his life, and from everyone else's, as if I'd been reborn with a new name, a new address, and a new kind of quiet. Changed my number, my city, my routine, erased every trace of the life I'd left behind. It was like wiping footprints before the tide came in. For a few months, peace felt possible. I slept, I ate, I laughed quietly to myself, trying to remember what it felt like to just exist. But freedom has a way of being hunted. It started with little things. A message from an unknown number, calling me by a nickname only he used. A car parked near my building. Same color, same model. A bouquet of flowers left downstairs, no name, tied with a blue ribbon, just like his gifts used to be. I felt the ground slip beneath me. The air got heavy again. I knew it was him. Even without proof, my body knew. That kind of fear doesn't need logic. It remembers patterns, smells, shadows. For weeks, I tried to convince myself it was paranoia. But terror hides in the smallest details. A brief touch on the street, footsteps that match your pace, a voice carried by the wind that says your name and disappears. Nothing concrete, but enough to make the nightmares breathe again. That's when I understood. He never wanted my body. He wanted my fear, and fear always knew how to find me. Then one day the photos came, from an unknown number, pictures of me, walking down the street, entering my friend's house, waiting at the bus stop, looking through shop windows. Taken from a distance, but close enough to remind me I was being watched. The terror returned in pixels and whispers. There was no doubt now. He had found me again. And this time, it wasn't just my life at risk. I feared for hers too, the only person who knew where I was. Fear consumed me, but inside it, something else began to grow. Instinct. I couldn't repeat my old mistake. I couldn't wait. I activated what I called my safety plan. Months before, I had prepared everything in silence. A hidden passport, duplicate documents, cash stored in small envelopes across the apartment. I knew an old friend had moved abroad to a country that didn't require a visa. Just an invitation letter. It felt like destiny whispering a way out. I packed in ours. No note, no goodbye. Just a small suitcase and a tired kind of faith. Leaving my family broke me, but it was that or lose my life. When the plane took off, I watched the city lights fade beneath the clouds, taking with them everything I once was. Now the fear is quieter, but it still breathes with me. It sleeps light, hiding in the cracks of my memory. And maybe, one day, it will finally fade away only when he's no longer in this world. I was 19 at the time, and I can still feel the fear like it just happened yesterday. I had a boyfriend I really liked, but as time went on, I started noticing strange things about him. I was young, naive. I got attached easily and lost interest just as fast, always chasing some kind of peace that never seemed to last. But he wasn't peace. He was something else. Still, I stayed. I've always been caring. The kind of person who listens, comforts, and wants to make others feel safe. Maybe that was my mistake. He seemed to crave that kind of care, but what I didn't know was that to him, it wasn't love. It was possession. I remember the night I ended it so clearly. The rain was tapping softly on the roof, almost like it was warning me. I took a deep breath, looked at him, and said what I'd been rehearsing for days, that I didn't want to be with him anymore. He stared at me, silent, as if my words hadn't even reached him. After a long pause, he exhaled and asked if there was someone else. I said no, but he kept pressing, his tone calm, eyes locked on mine, almost unblinking. Then he said something that still echoes in my head. If I find out there's someone else, it won't be good, and it'll be your fault. It didn't sound like anger. It sounded like a promise. Cold, final. The kind of calm that hides something dangerous. I left as fast as I could, pretending everything was normal, and he just nodded. I thought it was over, but what really ended that night was my peace. After he went home, I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. That tone, that stillness, the way he looked at me like I was already guilty of something. Then I started remembering who he really was. How protective he could get. How he'd pick fights with strangers for simply looking at me too long. Back then, I thought it was sweet. I mistook control for protection, possession for love. I was a teenager who just wanted to feel wanted, and he made me feel like the center of his world, until I realized that world had invisible bars. Fear started seeping in where love used to be. I saw how easily he lost control, how much he enjoyed having power. He was trained to fight, and he used that strength to intimidate. He said he was protecting me, but deep down I knew he was just protecting his ownership of me. I'd seen that flash in his eyes when someone else even smiled at me. Still, I stayed silent, convincing myself it was love. But the doubt grew stronger. What if one day that anger turned on me? I didn't want to believe it. He'd never hit me, never raised his hand. But that stare, it was enough to paralyze me. I thought as long as I didn't upset him, I'd be safe. Until one afternoon proved me wrong. I was talking to a classmate after school. Everyone left, and suddenly I felt a presence behind me. When I turned, he was there. His face was tight, eyes wide with rage. He grabbed my arm so hard I thought they'd bruise. That silent fury in his eyes told me everything. He didn't need to say a word. I froze, expecting something terrible, but then he just let go, turned, and walked away. That silence stayed with me for years. It took less than a week after I broke up with him for everything to begin. That's when the real nightmare started. I developed panic attacks, OCD, insomnia. Everywhere I went, I felt him near, and sometimes he was. I'd see him across the street by the bus stop, standing there, staring, not moving. At night, I'd see his shadow outside my window, near the old tree by the fence. The wind would move the branches, and I'd catch that familiar outline, his outline. He never spoke, just watched. Then came the messages. I'd block his number, and another one would appear. Then another. When I stopped checking my phone, he started leaving notes under my door, folded paper that smelled like his cologne. The handwriting was tense, pressed deep into the page, almost carved. The words made my stomach twist. Missed you in my bed. Your scent is still on my clothes. I look at your photos every day. Miss touching you. And then, are you missing something? That last one broke me, because when I checked, I really was missing things. Clothes, underwear, a shirt I used to sleep in at his place, a set of lingerie only he'd ever seen. That's when it hit me. He had been inside my apartment, touching my things, breathing my air. I started checking every lock, every door, over and over. It became a ritual, a twisted prayer. I'd count clicks and latches like they were the only thing keeping me alive. That's how my compulsions began. My mind trying to control what couldn't be controlled. But even with all that, little things kept changing. A cup moved. A picture frame tilted. The faint smell of his cologne lingering in the hallway. It was like he was playing with me, enjoying it. I changed the locks, the curtains, everything. But part of me still wanted to believe he wouldn't hurt me. That denial was the last bit of safety I had left. One night, I took a different way home. I'd been doing that a lot, changing routes, times, trying to lose him if he was following me. The air was damp, heavy with fog. The streetlights flickered. I walked faster, my bag clutched tight. The sound of my footsteps echoed down the narrow alley. Then, another pair joined mine. A half beat behind, I sped up. So did they. I turned, and through the haze I saw a shadow, tall, still, watching. My chest tightened. I could barely breathe. Then I heard it, his voice, soft and too familiar. Changed your locks, my love? How am I supposed to take care of you now? Before I could react, I felt his hand grab my arm and slam me against the cold brick wall. His body pressed against mine, his breath mixing with the rain and fear. I've never felt panic like that. My body wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Part of me still wanted to believe he wouldn't hurt me. But you don't have to raise your hand to cause pain. He looked at me the same way he always did. Calm, almost loving. Like this was just another way to prove I belonged to him. My body was weak, drained from days of fear and hunger. I could barely stand. I locked my eyes on his, waiting for what he'd do next. Then, voices, laughter, a group of kids walking nearby. He turned his head for just a second. I ran like my life depended on it. The rain hit my face, my lungs burned, and the sound of his boots splashing behind me faded little by little. But my body gave up before I reached the end of the block. Everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital. White lights, the smell of antiseptic, someone crying down the hall. They said I'd fainted from exhaustion. I filed a police report that same night, hands still shaking. I showed them the messages, the notes, everything I'd kept. The doctors confirmed my breakdown. It was enough to make it official. The police told me to leave, to go somewhere he'd never find me. Luckily, I had an aunt across the country. Within days, I packed everything I could and left without looking back. I thought the distance would help, that the fear would fade, but it didn't. He's still here somehow. In my mind, in my habits. I still check the locks 3 times before bed. I still wake up thinking someone's outside my window. And sometimes when the wind hits just right, I see that same shadow, as if he never really left.